It's August, the final month of summer where kids have the opportunity to enjoy the last few weeks of fun in the sun right before going back to school. But there's another reason to get excited. A new themed month of videos discussing about the 3 original Nicktoons.
We're not just cartoons. We're Nicktoons. Not just cartoons.
We're Nicktoons.
Not just cartoons.
We're Nicktoons.
Not just cartoons.
We're Nicktoons.
On August 11, 1991, Doug, Rugrats, and the Ren Stimpy Show debuted on TV and became groundbreaking hits. Now, 25 years later, they're known by millions as classics that paved the way for many animators to produce creator-driven cartoons. The first one we'll give attention to is Rugrats. Created by Arlene Klasky, Gabor Chupo, and Paul Germain, Rugrats is about a group of babies consisting of Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil, going through their everyday adventures exploring their surroundings while their parents have no clue as to what they're doing, while unintentionally causing mayhem all around them. While the show was incredibly basic with their main characters being babies, the show became a worldwide phenomenon, lasting for over a decade with 2 spin-offs, 3 movies, a ton of toys, merchandise, and currently being the only Nicktoon, as of the time of this recording, having a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was the SpongeBob SquarePants of its time. In honor of its 25th anniversary, today we're going to be taking a look at the original pilot from 1990 and comparing it to the TV show to see what similarities and changes occurred. Now you might be thinking, are you going to do the same thing for Doug and Ren and Stimpy? Well, no. The reason why is because there's not really much of a difference when comparing them to their TV shows. For Doug's pilot, Doug Can't Dance, with the exception of the animation being rougher and the voice actors not having a full grasp on how they'll portray their characters, it's more or less the same premise. For Ren and Stimpy's pilot, Big House Blues, the animation, plots, humor, voices, and character portrayals are pretty much consistent to how it would become later on in the show. Both Doug and Ren and Stimpy would eventually air their pilots as episodes earlier throughout their show's run. Rugrats did not. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at the original pilot and see how well it holds up. The pilot, titled Tommy Pickles and the Great White Thing, starts off with Tommy staring at a toilet that was recently flushed by Grandpa, who's now washing his hands. Tommy slowly crawls towards the toilet, when suddenly Grandpa picks him up and walks him towards the playpen, where we see Stu and Dee Dee having a conversation with a couple at the dining room table. With Grandpa gone, Tommy tells the twins, Phil and Lil, about what he recently saw.
Guess what just happened? I heard this noise from Grandpa's thinking room, so I snuck in there, and you know what I saw? What? There's a big white thing in there. What is it? I don't know, but it burped at me.
Phil and Lil debate on what the toilet really is. Phil thinks it's a water bowl for their dog to drink in. Lil thinks it's a fish bowl because she saw something swimming in it. I'll let you figure out what she saw. Tommy thinks that the toilet is alive and wants to explore more of it later on that night when the grown-ups are asleep. Less than 2 minutes in, there's some noticeable differences in the pilot that it showcases. First off, you may notice that Grandpa's name is never mentioned in the pilot. He's simply known as Pop to Stu. In the credits, though, his name is Stu Pickles Sr. instead of Lou in the TV series. Also, going back to an earlier scene with Stu and Dee Dee talking to the couple, believe it or not, those are Phil and Lil's parents, not Betty and Howard that we will be more familiar with. Third, and definitely the most detectable out of all of them, is that Tommy sounds completely different. Tommy in the pilot is voiced by Tammy Halbrook. Halbrook was later replaced by E.G. Daily, since they felt that she sounded more like a grown woman than a little baby. The interesting thing to know is that this was E.G. Daly's very first voiceover role, and she originally didn't want to do it. Her agent convinced her to give it a shot, and later on she would voice many other characters such as Buttercup from the Powerpuff Girls, Rudy from Chalk Zone, and many more. Later that night, when Stu and Dee Dee put Tommy to sleep, Tommy slowly wakes up and grabs his screwdriver and unhooks the crib so he can walk toward the bathroom. You notice that Tommy is now wearing an orange shirt. This will be the first and last time in the series he will be wearing anything but his iconic blue shirt, with the exception of the first episode, Tommy's first birthday, where he will be having a red shirt with overalls. When reaching the bathroom, he climbed up the plunger to reach toward the toilet. When he sees his reflection in the water, Tommy freaked out and caused a huge mess in the bathroom. This will be really consistent throughout the first season of the show, in which the babies would cause disorderliness everywhere there would be at, whether it be at a movie theater in the episode At the Movies, the restaurant in the episode Waiter, There's a Baby in My Soup, or the supermarket in the episode Incident in Aisle 7. The family dog Spike came to the rescue, and he walked toward the living room where Grandpa would be watching a show about fishing. Surprisingly awake, because usually Grandpa would be falling asleep when watching TV. Then a commercial came in with a woman advertising for sticky chicken, with Grandpa leaving for the bathroom. This commercial is nowhere near as iconic as the Reptar cereal commercial, or even better yet, chocolate cheese. The episode concludes with Tommy changing the channel while Stu, Dee Dee, and Grandpa arguing in the background about the disastrous appearance of the bathroom. When looking back on the original pilot, the simple premise of Rugrats was kept intact, but with the exception of the minor differences shown earlier. But seeing as this was never meant to be aired on TV, but only for the higher-ups at Nickelodeon to pitch it as an idea for a possible show, watching it is a bit staggering at points. The pilot was never shown to the public until the year 2000, where it was featured in Volume 1 of the Rugrats Decade in Diapers VHS tape, a whole 10 years after the pilot was created. However, clips of the pilot were shown in promos advertising for the original Nicktoons and for Rugrats, which is where I first saw it as a kid. The pilot was animated and directed by Peter Chung, who's very well known for the animated series Aeon Flux. He not only directed this episode, but he co-designed the characters alongside with Arlene Klasky and Gabor Chupo, but also animated and directed the opening theme song. The pilot may only be 6 minutes long, but it's a nice piece of Nicktoons history well worth checking out.